Guys, and welcome back to another episode of Fit and Focus for Remote Work and Digital Nomads podcast. My name is Angela Shurina. I'm a certified nutritionist, health nutrition, brain performance coach, and just someone with a lot of passion for helping you to learn how to use different tools like nutrition, workplace, living space design, behavior protocols, different habits, and different smells and foods and sounds and so many other modalities to help you to learn how to help your brain to do its best work and ultimately to help your brain to change your life for the better. Right? So this is what podcast is all about. And of course, I've been a digital nomad for 12 years and I'm very passionate about remote work and this location independent lifestyle, entrepreneurship, and people who take a different path, who shape their own path, who very often create a path that was not there, right? That's what the podcast is all about. So yesterday, guys, we released an episode with Johannes, and he's been a digital nomad for 12 years. He was at the very beginning of the movement and helping right now to build more connected communities for digital nomads. So we have this location dependent lifestyle, but we also build connections on a deeper level, friendships and finding life partners and preserve our connections to our roots, right? So Johannes is doing all of that, but also he has quite a lot to say on productivity for digital nomads, especially for the ones who are developing their career, who are building business, right? So please do listen to this podcast that we did yesterday. Maybe listen to it over the weekend, over several days, but you learn so much, especially if you are an aspiring location-independent entrepreneur or someone who works remotely and you want to do more traveling, but also you don't want your work, your business to suffer. This podcast is for you. And again, it's a conversation where we go on so many different topics, from again relationships to building business, building communities, travels, productivity, focus, even 1 meal a day lifestyle. So tune in to the episode we did yesterday. And today, guys, I want to talk to you about nutrition, like I promised to talk to you about. I'm a certified nutritionist and I'm very passionate about food because it has a profound effect on who we are and what we do in life, how we do it, how we show up, how we feel every single day. I'm very passionate about nutrition and food that we put on our plate. And sadly, our food environment right now does not promote the best eating behaviors. It does not promote eating more healthy foods. It's screwed up in so many ways. And first thing I want you to realize that your interest and the interest of food industry, no matter what kind of mission that, specific food brand has, your interests are quite different. You try to maintain health and possibly get better at managing your eating habits, because overeating is not good for anyone. And food industry, it doesn't matter again what brand it is, they want you to buy more, to consume more, right? And again, more consumption of more is not probably in your best interest. So realize this first fact, that food industry wants you to consume more. For most of you, you don't want to consume more. You want to consume just the right amount, right? The second thing, yesterday I read this study that came out in one of the outlets where I read almost every single study. It's Neuroscience News. It's a website dedicated to obviously neuroscience, but also how it relates to different aspects of our health. And so they published this study. I think it was the most recent one, maybe it was. And there were quite a few studies before that, but this study specifically touches upon the instances of more depression, not like clinical depression, but just being in a state of mild depression, like being a little bit more negative most of the time. Increased cases of anxiety, like like somebody who is more anxious, more worried, instead of being again calm and peace, managing their challenges and stresses well, not being all that, well, in the case of anxiety, actually being a little bit more on the negative side and just feeling like something is off, something is wrong in your life. And guys, in everyone's life, life is not perfect. We're all dealing with challenges. But the difference between people who are more depressed, who are anxious, who are worried, who are stressed, whose levels are elevated, is that that's the lens they look at their life through. So whatever comes up, the first evaluation is negative. And you spend most of your time, not you specifically, but if you have anxiety, increased anxiety, you spend more of your time worrying about stuff. What can go wrong, right? And it's like underlying theme of your days. What's going to go wrong today, or tomorrow, or in a week, or in a month, or in a year? If I do this, how many things can go wrong, right? If that is the underlying theme of your life, that you might look into your mental health. Underlying theme should be, it's kind of good. Some things are challenging, some things are really awesome, but I'm handling it well, and being in a more positive and calm state and looking more optimistically at the world. This is the state of a mentally healthy and well human being. Optimism and feeling like you have energy, like you have resources to get out there, to explore, to connect, to build something. That is what good mental health is all about. So back to the study, they did the study where they analyzed the diets of different people, specifically how much of processed foods they eat, and their instances of mild depression, anxiety, etc. They compared that to people who eat much less of processed foods or none at all, and their instances of stress and anxiety. And there is a direct correlation between that, right? The more people eat processed foods, all ultra-processed foods, the more they have problems with depressive states, with anxiety, and all kinds of issues with their mental health. Number one, what is processed food? What is unprocessed foods? There's going to be a link in the show notes to a classification that I think first came out in Brazil, but now it is widely used. They created really good classification of foods that are considered to be unprocessed foods. I think it was like processed foods, and then culinary ingredients, and then minimally processed foods, and then ultra processed foods. Like ultra processed foods are the worst kind of foods. Those are your junk foods, all kinds of snacks with a lot of different sugars and fats and calories and not so much nutrition. They very often undergo many processes of processing and don't resemble any whole food at all, right? So this is like kind of ultra processed foods. Also, you get your sodas there, etc. And then things like minimally processed foods would be things like canned fish, even, my favorite canned sardines would be there, or canned beans. It doesn't matter, if they have just water and beans, it's still considered to be somewhat processed food, minimally processed, right? And they have culinary ingredients like olive oil or salt. So it's a very good system. You can look it up. The link is in the show notes, is available to the public, just for out of curiosity, right? And so the study showed that the more processed food, especially ultra processed foods people eat, the more instances of mental illness they have. Again, might not be necessarily clinical depression or like very bad cases of anxiety, but your mental health is on a lower side the more processed foods you eat. And they also bring up numbers that 70% of US food supply is, for example, that processed, ultra processed foods, and 60% of calories that people consume in the US come from those foods. And, it's not surprised if you have 70% of those foods to be ultra processed and, highly processed. And of course, people would eat most of it. Like what you show to the people, that's what people eat. It's like the same, in my fridge, there is zero processed food, literally. And so what do I eat? I eat mostly whole foods. Yeah, sometimes I might buy some snack, but it's not in my fridge, so I don't eat it. But that's about, what is whole foods, what is processed foods. The basic idea is obviously whole unprocessed foods are those foods like meat, your fish, your vegetables, your fruit, your nuts and seeds, your beans, things that you buy and they're whole. And then nothing was done to them. There are no ingredients or, if it's packaged like broccoli in a package, frozen broccoli, it's one ingredient, right? It's whole foods. You know what that is. Then minimally processed foods are, again, foods like canned foods with maybe some salt in it or something like that. And the more ingredients are added, the more whole food doesn't resemble, the more food product does not resemble whole food, the more processed it is. And also usually there is less nutrition, there are more empty calories, etc. So again, they did the study, and even before that, it was kind of known, and there were different observational studies and data about that. And why I'm bringing it up is because how you feel daily, like how optimistic, how well, how energized, just how uplifted you feel daily, how not stressed, anxious, overwhelmed, worried you feel. Maybe there are some other mental illnesses or similar conditions. Like how well you feel gonna define what decisions you make, what actions you take, and that's how many people you connect with, what kind of people you'll connect with, and that's gonna define the course of your life, guys. This is the course of your life, your destiny we're talking about. Yes, I'm not over exaggerating it. The more processed food you eat, the less of a exciting life you're gonna have, because it's gonna affect your mental state every single day, your default mental state, and that's gonna affect your decisions, your actions, the connections with people you make, and that will affect everything else in your life. It will affect your personality traits. It even can become your character, guys. The person I am today, I am because of my lifestyle, not because of some internal genetic conditions. Yeah, I have some genetic predispositions, but if I were to choose a completely different lifestyle, were to eat a lot of processed food, didn't exercise, didn't care about my sleep all that much, maybe drink alcohol, here and there, I'd be a completely different person. I would have a completely different life. I would not be talking to you on this podcast. I can assure you of that. So never take your diet lightly. And I have a couple of practical advice. As usual, I worked as a nutrition coach for like a decade of my life. I'm a certified nutritionist, so I have quite a few tricks in my sleeve how to help you to eat more whole food diet. Again, as I already mentioned, the food that resembles food in its original form, it is the most unprocessed foods. Now, the tricky part is with the ingredients. A lot of whole foods are made into some products with some ingredients like emulsifiers, flavor enhancers, all kind of additives to make them shelf stable. Like the more of that is used in the product, the longer the shelf life of the product, except maybe for the things like beans. Dried beans can be without preservatives for like many months and probably years, or canned food, minimum preservative, salt, that's it, and they can it in a vacuum, and it can be good for years, and it's minimally processed foods. But then there are a lot of foods where you read the ingredients, and that's the habit you want to acquire, guys. You want to practice it and master it. Reading ingredients. If there are a ton of ingredients, you don't understand them, and you would never buy them into your kitchen to cook. Like, again, there are so many terms. I even lost track already of all the ingredients. There are 10 ingredients and I don't understand any of them. Like, that is not going into my kitchen. Once in a while, like sometimes at some party, once or twice a month, if you eat something like that, it's totally fine. But if it's in your fridge and you eat it almost every single day, or, in your pantry, then that is not a good scenario. So just be very careful about ingredients. Even with things like coconut or almond milk, I usually buy milks that have like coconut milk, water, and maybe some salt. And that's it, guys. And then you find other milks, and there are like 20 ingredients. What do you think is better for you? Those emulsifiers that are in most of those plant-based milks, they actually have been shown to decrease the capability of your gut to maintain proper lining. And that is gut. Guys, this has a lot of negative implications. So when I read quite a lot of data about that, I'm very careful about not consuming foods on a regular basis with emulsifiers. And on a regular basis, meaning I don't buy it into my house. Now, if I go out and once in a while I get it somewhere, that's another story, but if you eat it every day, again, that accumulates, right? So be very careful. If you buy your nut milk, your almond milk, your coconut milk, just look at the ingredients. If there are 20 ingredients, why do you want 20 ingredients? Like, you only need coconuts or coconut milk, maybe water, and again, maybe some salt to make it a little bit more interesting. That's it. You don't need a lot to make coconut or almond milk. Again, the reason why a lot of brands use a lot of those ingredients, reason number one, to increase shelf life. Reason number two, to make it the texture, the flavor a little bit well-rounded and smoother and better, right? To make it more interesting and more sellable and more profitable. That's what they do. And they get away with that because nutrition studies are hard to do, and controlling people's diets and figuring out the exact cause of certain health problems, it's very hard. And so all those brands, they get away with all the shit that they put in the food products. So guys, just be aware of that. I don't want to scare you, but our food industry is a wild west right now. So figure out how to eat whole foods, whether you cook it or somebody else cooks for you. There is always a way, right? When it comes to eating out, if you become a digital nomad, location independent, or also a lot of people just don't cook these days, and you find yourself eating out a lot, then also please just know the fact that there is a lot more in your food that you don't know it's there, and it can cause anything from additional calories that you don't see and you consume, and you start putting on weight, calories from fats and sugars, again, that you don't see really in your food. Also, they might not be using necessarily the best ingredients or the best kind of foods and meats and fish, so you just don't know. But I think most important hack for eating out, if you do eat out quite consistently, go for simple foods. So what I do when I eat out, first of all, I go for, of course, for things like fruit and salads, and I make sure to ask dressing on the side, and I usually don't go with the dressing that is offered for these salads. For example, I just ask to bring me olive oil, sometimes lime, sometimes lemon juice, maybe some salt and pepper, and I make my own dressing, right? That's hack number one. Then I can control the amount of oil that goes into salad, the amount of calories, whether there is added sugar or not. The second thing I always do is I always ask, if I get something cooked, grilled, for example, do they use any oil or any kinds of dressing? And what I add to that is I have some food allergies or food sensitivities. Usually I would say sensitivities. Sometimes I add allergies, so people are a little bit more concerned about what they can do to me, right? And I ask, like, what exactly is in that dressing, or maybe dressing that marinade that you put your meat or fish or chicken into before cooking that. I am a pain in the ass when it comes to cooked food in restaurants, but that's because I do have a sensitive gut, and that stuff affects me right away. And so I'm not lying, I am actually food sensitive. I'm not gonna die, I'm just not gonna feel that well. I'll feel more anxious, more worried, a little bit crankier the next day, a little bit edgy, right? I don't like that. I like to feel positive and optimistic. So I'm very careful about my food. I'm like one of those, canaries in the mine. They used to, get the birds into the mine before the workers would go there to get some, ore or coal. Because if birds felt some gas and they would either die or leave the place, then it means it wasn't safe for people. So I'm kind of the same with food. If this food does something to me, it is doing something to you. You just don't notice it. So when I go to a restaurant, I ask about all the ingredients. I tell them I have food sensitivities, but please do tell me exactly what goes into that food. And of course, I then go for really simple foods, steamed, poached, grilled. I ask them to not add any oil whatsoever, because the oils they use usually are not the ones that you want to be eating, that can and will probably screw up your gut or increase inflammation levels, that also will contribute to you feeling more anxious, worried, depressed, etc., having more cravings for foods or sugar, or just triggering you in more negative ways. So go for simple foods. And again, on a regular basis, I do recommend you find a way to get cooked meals where you can control all the ingredients. Maybe, I don't know, pay someone, maybe your friend loves cooking and you can pay them so they cook a little bit extra for you. Like, there are many options. It doesn't mean you have to sign up for some extra expensive meal delivery or have a personal chef. Like, there are ways. Right? And this is your health and well-being we are talking about. So these are a couple of my hacks. And when it comes to street foods, when you travel and you experiment with foods, when you want to try different cuisines, try them. But maybe try them once a week or once in 2 weeks, right? Don't try them every single day, compromising your health, your mental state, your well-being, your decisions, your productivity, your energy levels. That is not a good pattern in your life. I'm just sharing my experience and experience of people I worked with all over the world. And I can tell you one thing. The more simple your food gets, the better you're going to feel, the more energy you're going to have, and it's going to affect your decisions, your personality, your energy levels, actions you take, and the life you have. That's why I recommend stick to the simplest, the most unprocessed foods. Figure out how to get freshly cooked meals made from whole food ingredients. Also, make sure you control those ingredients. And even when you find someone to cook for you, just make sure you know what goes into your food. You can always add stuff like maybe olive oil or, even salt, but try to get it as unchanged as possible and then add things as you need them. And for the restaurants, again, just ask what kind of ingredients. Tell them, I'm very sensitive, or I might have some allergies, so please do tell me. When it comes to foods, the products that you buy, even things like nut milks, just make sure to check the ingredients. Just have some more common sense. Have a habit of reading the ingredients. There are some sardines that would have 5 ingredients. I don't know, some preservatives, some salt, etc. There are ingredients that have just 2 ingredients. Sardines that have just 2 ingredients. Fish and salt in the water they're in, right? So do check those ingredients. If you need any advice, please reach out, guys. I'm more than happy to answer any of your questions. Again, spend quite a lot of time in the industry, and I'm a geek, so I used to read a lot more about food industry than an average nutritionist would. So please reach out if you have any concerns, any doubts, and check out the link in the show notes to learn more about what is the definition of processed foods, minimally processed foods, culinary ingredients, highly processed foods, ultra processed foods. These are the worst. So check out the link in the show notes, ask questions, have an awesome weekend, plan some healthy food cooking. Check out the episode we did yesterday with Johannes about digital nomads' life, relationships, building communities, and productivity. And as usual, guys, till next time, eat better daily.